Hey, thanks for clicking. I'm Grace, and this is my channel where I share any opinions I may have about any of the literature I may read. However, today we're doing more of a news roundup. If you didn't notice, this is only the second video that I'm posting, so I'm still figuring this all out. If you'll just bear with me, I promise things will get better. If you haven't watched the previous video, I talked about how I recently reconnected with my love of literature. And along with that, I discovered that I actually really enjoy reading articles and maybe tuning in a little bit more with what's going on around the world. And I'm not just talking about in the political sphere. In fact, I get very bored with that very quickly, considering it feels like it's always the same thing over and over and over and over again. And in creating this channel, I thought it would be fun to try and keep abreast of what's going on in the literary world. What books are soon to come out, or which series are being continued, or which books are being made into movies. I'm still trying to figure out where are the best sources for this kinds of news. So if you have a favorite literary news source, drop it in the comments below. Our first tidbit of the day is the Dayton Literary Peace Prize. The 2024 recipients have been chosen, and I thought it'd be fun to learn a little bit more about that. Just a little bit about the awards, and I'm just reading this off of their webpage, which I'll have linked down below. It says the Dayton Literary Peace Prize inaugurated in 2006. It's the first and only annual U.S. literary award recognizing the power of the written word to promote peace. The Dayton Literary Peace Prize invites nominations in adult fiction and nonfiction books published within the last year that have led readers to a better understanding of other cultures, peoples, religions, and political points of view. And then, of course, there's a cash prize for the award. This also includes the Ambassador Richard C. Holbrooke Distinguished Achievement Award, which was previously the Lifetime Achievement Award, which is given to someone with a body of work. Just for fun, I thought I'd go over the award criteria, and this is what the website has to say. Nominated works should focus on peace, increasing understanding between and among people as individuals or within and between families, communities, nations, ethnic groups, cultures, and religions. Works should have enduring literary value and should appeal to a variety of audiences. Nominated works should characterize peace as ending or seeking to end conflict, personal, national, or international, establishing concord between and among people, or showing consequences of persons, nations, or institutions recklessly disrupting personal harmony or universal accord. Just a little bit about the Ambassador Richard C. Holbrooke Distinguished Achievement Award. As I said, it was previously the Lifetime Achievement Award, but was recently renamed in honor of Richard C. Holbrooke. I don't actually know much about this situation currently, but I do plan to look into it a little bit more, and we might cover that in a future news video. For now, let's focus on what the criteria for this award is. The criteria for the Distinguished Achievement Award are the same criteria as those used for the other awards, except the Richard C. Holbrooke Award for a Distinguished Achievement will be looking for writers with a body of work rather than a single book that meets the criteria. So that would be everything that I previously read. It just needs to apply to more than one of their books. On to the winners. The recipient of the Ambassador Richard C. Holbrooke Distinguished Achievement Award this year is President Jimmy Carter. I'm not quite sure why this was so surprising to me, but I did not know, well, I didn't know much about Jimmy Carter to begin with, but I didn't know that he's written over 30 books throughout his lifetime. I was interested to find out that several of them are religious content, but he has several pieces about politics, life after the White House, and he even wrote a book titled Palestine, Peace, Not Apartheid. Because this is a news video and not a deep dive about Jimmy Carter, because I was interested, we're gonna move on. But I thought that was all really interesting, and I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. The fiction and nonfiction awards, as I understand it, are awarded to an author of a single book. The recipient of the 2024 Fiction Award is Paul Lynch for his book Prophet Song. The runner-up for the 2024 Fiction Award was Anne Berest for The Postcard. The recipient of the Nonfiction Award was Victor Luckerson for Built from the Fire. And the runner-up for the Nonfiction Award was Tanya Brannigan for Red Memory. Not entirely sure how these nominations or the process is for deciding who wins, but I think it's worth noting that even if you're a runner-up or there's a list of finalists, they're probably books that are worth reading. As I said before, I'll be including the link down below if you're interested in checking out any of these books. That's where you'll find them. I just want to put a little plug in here real quick for any library apps. If you're not connected with the app that your library most likely provides, I highly recommend it. I have ADHD, and so library fees are a very real threat to my finances. But using an app means that that's like never going to happen to me. So if you too have been plagued by the library rentals, seriously, I recommend the library apps. I use it primarily for audiobooks, but you can get books for reading. If you have a Kindle, they can be sent to your Kindle. I have a large iPad, and that's great in case I want to read like a picture book or like a graphic novel. Anyway, small tangent, super recommend. If you're not connected to your library's app, get connected. All right, the next piece of news I want to chat about is National Hispanic Heritage Month. I didn't actually know about this until I was doing research for this video, and it was talked about everywhere. So National Hispanic Heritage Month starts this year on September 15th and goes until October 15th. I saw something about it that said they started it mid-month in honor that like something about like a lot of Hispanic holidays happen mid-month or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but there was a specific reason that they chose to have it start in the middle of the month. So I thought that was interesting. I went ahead and picked out 3 titles that sounded interesting to me, and I'm going to share those with you now. A Sunny Place for Shady People is one that I saw on several lists and sounds really interesting, so I'm excited to get into that. A Sunny Place for Shady People by Mariana Enriquez. Here's a little blurb I found about this book. It says, "Welcome to Argentina and the fascinating, frightening, fantastical imagination of Mariana Enriquez. In 12 spellbinding stories, Enriquez writes about ordinary people, especially women, whose lives turned inside out when they encounter terror, the surreal, and the supernatural. Discover a diabolical collection featuring achingly human characters whose lives intertwine with ghosts, goblins, and the macabre, by one of Latin America's most exciting authors." And that was written by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I think it might be classified as horror fiction, which is a genre that I don't engage in super often just because I'm sensitive and I have to be careful. But this sounded really interesting, so I'm going to at least give it a shot. The next book I want to bring to your attention is called The Soul of a Woman, and it's written by Isabel Allende. Born in Peru and raised in Chile, and as a young woman coming of age in the late 1960s, she rode the second wave of feminism. Among a tribe of like-minded female journalists, Allende felt comfortable in her own skin as they wrote, quote, "with a knife between our teeth," end quote, about women's issues. The Soul of a Woman share a bold exploration of womanhood, feminism, parenting, aging, love, and more. And as best I can understand it, this is like a memoir, autobiography kind of book. And the last title I'm going to mention in this little list is called The Man Who Could Move Clouds, and it's written by Ingrid Rojas Contreras. From the best-selling author of Fruit and the Drunken Tree comes a dazzling, kaleidoscopic memoir reclaiming her family's otherworldly legacy. Interweaving family stories more enchanting than those in any novel, resurrected Colombian history, and her own deeply personal reckonings with the bounds of reality, Rojas Contreras writes her way through the incomprehensible and into her inheritance. The result is a luminous testament to the power of storytelling as a healing art and an invitation to embrace the extraordinary. I picked these 3 from a list that I'll link down below. Honestly, all these titles look amazing. I just don't have time to make a 2-hour video today. So you get 3. The rest you can look into on your own. As I mentioned earlier, I'm still figuring this out. So at the moment, my best sources are the widely known publishing houses. I'd love to hear from you about your favorite like indie artists. I don't know if that's what you would call them, but like independently published, maybe smaller publishing houses. Any sources for little known authors, I would love to hear from you. Final piece of news that I'm going to bring to your attention today is of more of a historical nature. On this day, September 22nd of 1598, playwright Ben Jonson was indicted for killing Gabriel Spencer. Now, why, you might be asking, should I give a shit? Honestly, I don't know, but I thought it was interesting, so here we are. So Benjamin Jonson was a famous playwright, allegedly. Yesterday was the first day I had ever heard of him, but I guess he's supposed to be in the same kind of sphere as William Shakespeare, which, it could be that I was just too focused on Shakespeare to notice mentions about Ben Jonson, but I have never heard of Ben Jonson. Anyways, Ben Jonson, playwright, has a disagreement with Gabriel Spencer. Everything that I can find, nobody really knows why. They just decided they were going to have a little duel. They kind of have a history. I read somewhere that they had been previously arrested, the 2 of them, for maybe other like dueling type behavior. Like they were just up to no good, which that seems like that's in line with the typical playwright of the time, you know, Elizabethan. Yeah. Here's a little excerpt from an article I found about it. Accounts of what happened differ. Jonson later claimed that Spencer's sword was 10 inches longer than his own. Okay. And that he had been wounded in the arm before he fought back. The indictment, however, reports that it was Jonson who feloniously and willfully struck and beat Spencer with a rapier before striking him, quote, a mortal wound of the depth of 6 inches and the breadth of 1 inch. And then it says Spencer died instantly. So, on today in 1598, Ben Jonson was indicted for this crime. Now, he was actually convicted of it. He pled guilty, but he escaped being like hanged by pleading benefit of clergy, which is also something new I learned about today, where basically if he could read a Bible verse, then he was like branded but spared his life. So he like wandered around with an M on his thumb for the rest of his life, but he didn't die for needlessly killing one of his actors. So, I was intrigued by the benefit of clergy, and I decided to look into it a little bit more. It turns out that at first, it started out as something where you had to like show up in like ecclesiastical garb, and then it turned into you had to be able to read, because remember the church controlled who was literate and who wasn't. So then it was eventually extended to anybody who was literate. If they could read this passage, then they could get the benefit of the clergy. And so the scripture that they were required to read out is Psalm 51, and it is long. So I'll spare you. It's like 19 verses. I mean, it would take me a couple of minutes to read this, but I'll just the first couple of verses so you kind of get the idea. It says, "Have mercy upon me, O God, according to thy loving kindness, according unto the multitude of thy tender mercies, blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly from mine iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin, for I acknowledge my transgressions, and my sin is ever before me." And it continues. So they had to read that whole thing out to be absolved, which was pretty torturous. I mean, is it enough to absolve you of being an idiot and dueling, and then being shocked when somebody dies from the duel? I don't know about that, but hey, obviously I didn't make the decisions in 1598, so it's probably a good thing. Anyway, did you learn something today? I knew nothing about the Elizabethan woes that took place on this day. What is that, like 500 years ago? I can't actually do math. Yeah, that's like 500 years ago, right? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, it's crazy. On his thumb. So he's branded on his thumb. Is that like here on his thumb, or like here? And then like, why the thumb? Because who's gonna notice that? Like, I'm not running around looking at people's thumbs. So it really feels like the bare minimum, you know? Oh, we branded him on his thumb, which I suppose is nothing new from the justice system. I don't know. Anyways, well, that's the end of my list. So leave your comments below to any of the questions that I asked throughout this video, and what'd you think? Are you interested in watching more of these? I've already got some ideas for better structure for the next one, but we'll see how it goes. Hope to see you around.